All right, guys, welcome to Unstuck with Hydro Wellness Lab, the podcast where real people share the real stories behind getting their lives, their bodies, and their mindsets back on track. I'm your host, Bretton Hunt, and in every episode, we dive into powerful conversations with athletes, weekend warriors, health and wellness professionals, and everyday people who refuse to settle. These are the breakthroughs, the setbacks, the mindset shifts, the moments that get us unstuck. All right, guys, today I'm super excited. I am joined by Aiesha Beasley. Aiesha is one of the most recognizable personal brands in Arizona. What started as sharing her experiences and favorite local spots has now grown into a thriving business and a community of hundreds of thousands of people who look to her for inspiration, recommendations, and what real life looks like here in Arizona. So, known by many as Arizona's best friend on social media, she's turned content creation into a career, helping people discover hidden gems, local businesses, unforgettable experiences, and stories that make Arizona special. So today we're going to talk to her about her journey, of how she started all this, and some of the experiences that she's had. So I'm so excited to welcome Aisha.
Hey guys, thank you for having me on. I'm so excited about this conversation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come down here.
Absolutely.
So first, before we start, what did you think of the facility at Hydro? What was your favorite part of the protocol that you did? What did you like? What didn't you like? What was your experience over there?
I that you guys have so many different things. I've gone to a couple of different facilities, like wellness, biohacking facilities, and the treadmill machine is something I've never seen before. So that's really cool. I honestly loved everything. I've always loved doing the biohacking, the cryotherapy, red light, stuff like that I've done and I've had integrated in my routine before. It's just been a while. So it's nice to get back into it because I feel like you inspired me to get back into doing those things again because I used to be irregular going to doing stuff like that at least several times a week. So, but I would have to say, just laying in that red light bed, I loved it. It's
Awesome.
so relaxing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could just lay here for like 2 hours or something like that. So that was really good. Loved the hydro massage. That was different. I was really feeling it because I have a little bit of like low back pain. So it's like when I was turning it up to like the higher setting, I was like, oh yeah, I felt it so good. It was much needed. I needed kind of a little mini wellness day, so yeah, thank you.
Awesome. No, thank you for coming out. So
Yeah.
if you guys want to try what Aisha tried, just let us know, mention her, and you guys can come and try it for yourselves. All right. So tell us a little bit about you. You grew up in Arizona, born and raised. We were talking over there. Kind of rare nowadays to find people born and raised in Arizona, but just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, especially living in the valley, I've noticed a lot of people are like, "I can't believe, you're from here." I'm always meeting transplants, so it's really cool meeting someone else who's, like, local to here, but grew up in Tucson, Arizona, lived there all my life up until about 7 years ago when I moved to Phoenix. Out there, I went to school out there, went to high school, all my family's still out there, for the most part. And, I growing up always had kind of like this passion for like creating content and social media. In high school, I took like a photography class. And then when I got into college, I started like a blog on Tumblr when I was 19. This was like in like the early 2010s. So I've been in this game for so long. And so that was just a fun hobby. And this was before social media was something that you could really monetize. Because if you really think about the last like 15 to 20 years, I would just say after COVID, it became like a real thing where people like, now they want to be content creators. They want to do this as a job. They want to, start podcasts. They want to do all these fun things. And back in like the early 2010s, it was kind of weird to be like posting content online. I feel like people always maybe thought it was aspirational, but it was definitely something that like at least I got a lot of pushback from my family, from my coworkers, especially when I started to do Instagram, which was like later in the late 2010s. I started my Instagram account in 2017 after having a personal account. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I just want to make a fashion account, like just have fun with it, whatever. And people were just like, what are you doing? Like, I remember setting my tripod up, trying to take photos. People would be staring at me. Now it's pretty normal, to
Yeah.
see people out vlogging and stuff like that. But back then, it just was really weird, and you're the weird girl. Like, what are you doing? My family thought it was weird. So, like, I'm just like in my room talking to the camera,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, it just started as a fun hobby. I never really thought it could transition into a career. And when I moved out here right before COVID in 2019, I was like, okay, I want to get involved in the scene out here because I had a few blogger friends back in Tucson. So I started to connect with like local creators out here. And I was kind of going out, meeting people. And then also, I wanted to explore Phoenix, right? Even being from Tucson, I never really got out here a lot to just explore. So I was just using my Instagram and also TikTok because downloaded TikTok in 2019, but didn't really do much with it until COVID. I was just like, no, I'm just gonna post videos, whatever. So COVID hit. I was furloughed from my job, so I wasn't working for 3 months. Because I was a visual merchandiser and the malls were closed, and things were closed. I couldn't go to work. I started posting on TikTok. I had some B-roll and clips of me going to like cute aesthetic coffee shops and places and restaurants. And I just threw that on TikTok. It ended up taking off for me. And yeah, ever since then, it's been this kind of wild ride. I started Arizona Places, and it kind of just was a funny tagline I created out of I don't even know. I just was like, "Oh, welcome to Arizona Places," and it just kind of took off. So it's been really cool to see how it's progressed. And in 2023, I quit my job to go full time. So yeah, I've been full time creator for over 3 years now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I
That's
know that's a
amazing.
lot to
No,
compact in.
that's great. So, I mean, kind of going back to your childhood, you mentioned like, well, I was kind of the weird person because I was doing all this. So, what did you want to do when you were? I know you mentioned like I really liked that kind of stuff, but what was your dream? Like your dream at that point wasn't I'm going to be a content creator on Instagram and TikTok. What was your dream?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I wanted to do when I was like in elementary school, I mean, this is obviously I'm in my 30s. So like when I think about like the times now, I'm just like, obviously being an influencer wasn't ever a career path back in like the 2000s, right? So for me, it was I wanted to be like an actress. I wanted to be on TV. I remember, like, I would have, like a pretend microphone out, and I'd be, like there's, like, old childhood videos of me just, like, pretending I'm hosting and stuff like that. So I feel like it's funny that all this is tracking now in my life. But that wasn't really like a path for me. I really grew up really shy too.
Mm.
So I just really didn't have that creative outlet. And I felt like when I started on social media, especially for someone who's so introverted, it just was my way to express myself. So yeah, it just was something that just was like a fun thing, starting out, and it turned into something bigger. When I was a teenager, I wanted to get into fashion. I wanted to go to fashion school. I wanted to be a buyer, and so that's kind of why I went on the path of visual merchandising to kind of go on that path. So that's kind of what happened in that sense. So I think now that I look back on everything I'm doing right now kind of tracks to my passions. But yeah, I just again, there wasn't really a social media wasn't a thing,
Yeah.
20 years ago, really, like as far as being an influencer.
Yeah, and when we were talking over there, like when Instagram came out with Reels, I remember high school, Instagram was like a glorified Facebook. You just posted pictures.
Yeah, it was just
Yeah,
photos. Yeah, that was it.
there weren't stories, there were none of that. So I mean, it's evolved like crazy. So you mentioned you were shy. So when did that were you shy when you first started posting as well? Was that something that was kind of hard for you? Like like in 2020 when COVID's happening and all that, and you really started posting a lot. Was that something that was hard for you to kind of do at first?
I would say it was yes and no. I felt like during COVID, and even a little bit before then, like with TikTok especially, I just kind of felt like it was just you could just super like be expressive on there, right? I think now the climate on all social platforms has changed drastically the last few years to where people are like, how do you even post on there? Because it's so scary. There's so much opinions. But I felt like during that time, I felt like was very more so welcoming, and I feel like you could just post whatever and be yourself. Now I feel like it's a little bit harder because there's so much negativity, opinions, and all the things. But for me, I just felt like because I was so shy in real life, it was my way to be expressive.
Mhm.
I felt like that was a safe zone. Do I feel that way now? Not so much, yes and no, depending on the video, right?
Sure.
Because people can be nasty,
Mhm.
online. But yeah, I kind of felt the opposite. I felt like it was a way for me to express myself because felt like I really couldn't do that in real life.
Okay,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So, when did you mentioned you've been doing it since 2023? So you started in COVID, kind of as a side thing, right? And
Mhm.
then when was it that you decided, okay, I can actually do this full time? Like I'm good at this, and I'm gonna quit my job, and I'm
Yeah.
just gonna do this.
Yeah. So I would say I started making money on social media around 2018 and 20 like late mid to late 2018. I remember my first brand deal was like Bumble BFF when Bumble launched their BFF portion of their dating app at the time. And I remember them reaching out to me and they're like, yeah, we would love to work with you. You just have to do 2 posts for us. And this was like long time ago. I know, rates are drastically different, but I remember them saying that they would get like $500. And I was like, oh, cool. Like that was so cool for 2 photos. I was like, that's a no brainer. So thoughts were festering then when I started getting like brands reaching out to me on Instagram because I had a very micro following at the time, and Instagram's at that point was still photo content. So that was just exciting for me. So I was like, okay, I can kind of make a little side money doing this. Okay, cool. And so, but again, I still had the dreams of wanting to get into fashion. And I just thought that this would just be a great way to like continue to grow, network, and just kind of do my thing. So when I moved out here and got onto TikTok and I started just posting, my Arizona Places videos, I started seeing, traction from, local businesses reaching out, big brands reaching out for paid work. And so that's when I was like, okay, there could be a way for this to maybe transition into like being a full-time creator because it started as like, oh, making a couple $100 here and there to like, oh, I'm matching my full-time income. Oh, I'm surpassing my full-time income. Oh, well, I may not need my full-time job.
Yeah.
And so it kind of grew from there. But I think for myself, I was very strategic. I was like, yeah, this is good money, but like, let me see how consistent this can be, right? Let me save. Let me make sure my debt's paid off. I mean, with anything, when you're trying to walk away from your full-time job, like whether you're trying to be a content creator or an entrepreneur, like you just kind of have to have your ducks in a row a little
Yeah.
bit, like it's money saved. There's a realization that, okay, I'm going to be losing my health insurance. I have some steady and I have steady money coming in. I know every 2 weeks there's a paycheck coming in, right? When you work for yourself, that's not the reality all the time, right? There's ebbs and flows. It doesn't matter if you're an influencer or you're trying to start a restaurant, whatever it is, like there's ebbs and flows. So I made sure I had savings. I had 6 months of savings saved up, all my debt paid off at the time. And then I was just kind of tracking to see, like, okay, am I consistently making enough each month to sustain this? So once I had all that kind of checked out, I was like, yeah, I can walk away. So it was really like in late 2022, early 2023, where I was like, okay, like I'm going to make a leap. And so I left my job in early.
That's great, and it's paying off, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure it was a little nerve-wracking, like you just mentioned, like, "Okay, I'm gonna lose this, and I'm gonna lose this and that," but I'm sure it's something that now you look back like, "Man, I'm so glad I took that jump
Mhm.
and all that," so that's awesome. So, when you mentioned, you got your first paid, opportunity with Bumble,
Mhm.
and it's obviously evolved since now. how do you look at a company? Someone comes to you and is like, we want you to represent X company.
Mhm.
What kind of research do you do into that company to make sure, like, yes, that's something I do want to represent, or, it's a great company, but that's not for me? Like, what's your process of going through something like that?
Yeah, so it really varies on the brand and like who I'm working with. So I'll look at it in a few different ways. First, would my audience be excited about this, right? Like, if I'm going to be going to like a local spot, whether that's an activity or a restaurant, like, is my audience going to like this, or they can be excited about it? I look at that to look at, am I excited about it? Overall, like, I want to enjoy what I'm doing, enjoy what I'm eating,
Yeah.
so is this a place I would go to regardless if I was invited or paid to go to? So I look at that as well. And then I also research the company. If it's a restaurant that's been around for a while, I'll look at Yelp reviews, I'll look at Google reviews. Typically, and I know some other foodies do this like as well. They'll look at, they may not, I know some foodies say that they won't review a restaurant if it has under 4.0 review. And I've kind of been the same way. So I'm looking at reviews. I'm looking at what are people saying. Obviously, if it's a new restaurant, it's kind of like a hit or miss, right? You can't predict what the restaurant does, once it's up and running. So that can be a little tricky. I would say for new restaurants, I'll try to look at their track record. Like, do they have other restaurant concepts, or is this something that's super brand new? Typically for most restaurants, I normally try to wait at least a month after they've been open
Mhm.
to go in. But there's been instances where if I'm like, okay, like, I'm excited about this, I want to do it. Sometimes I'll go in during soft opening or a week after they open. But I think when it comes to like new places, specifically restaurants, that first month is always going to be rocky. So I know there is a lot of, controversy on certain new restaurants that open, and people are kind of like, oh, well, I waited so long, the service was slow, this and that and the third. It's like, keep in mind, you're going to that restaurant when it's for the first
Mhm.
couple of weeks. There's going to be some kinks that they're trying to work out, whether that is line control, crowd control, perfecting the food, perfecting the service, training their staff. So when people, I guess, have commentary on, creators who go out to these restaurants. They're like, oh, these creators got invited. They had such a great experience, but I went in the week after it opened and I didn't have that same experience. It can be tricky, right? Because now they're fully open and they're probably working out the kinks versus like when they have a soft opening and it's a very controlled environment. It could be a little bit different. But that's typically kind of how I look at, places and grade it when it's like a national brand. So, same thing. Like recently, I worked with Applebee's and J. Crew, and there's been so many like big brands I've worked with just this year alone. Again, am I excited about it? I'm also kind of looking at the brand reputation. I'm also looking at a lot of, sometimes you'll be surprised, a lot of national brands say, not to say they scam creators, but a lot of times they'll want like 10 videos and they'll want to only pay you like $100. And you're like, no, you are a multi-million dollar company. I'm not, stuff
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, I think it just varies. I think biggest things are, am I excited about this opportunity? Is this something that, my followers would love? And, do they already have a good reputation? You know what I'm saying? And, we sometimes don't always hit the mark, right? I may love something and have a great experience customer service wise. I thought maybe the food was great. And then another creator can come in the next day and not have that same experience.
Sure.
And I've experienced the opposite. I've had other people I know rave about a place. I've gone in and I'm like, dang, it didn't live up to what I thought it would. So I think the biggest thing, especially when it comes to food, is it's very subjective, right? So I could love my mom's cooking and love it so much. You could have my mom's cooking and be like, it's just not for me,
Sure.
So yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah.
So what's your favorite type of content to create? Like when someone reaches out to you for a collab, and you see it and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm excited about this. Like, you obviously still go through your process and everything, but you're just like, this is exciting.
I really love experiences. If it's like a fun activity or even like a hotel stay, I'm all over that. So those are like my fun things. Like I really love experiences and anything that I can share with my audience, especially if it's budget friendly too. I think that is something I always get hyped about.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you remember your very first video that went viral? Like that you were like the very first one where you're like, "Whoa, that one, that I got how many views on that one?"
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's a couple. One was like completely like well, would be considered out of niche now. I'm a huge K-pop fan, so
Okay.
BTS. I had a video where it was some audio on TikTok at the time that was very viral back in 2020.
Mhm.
That went viral for me. But my first Arizona Places video was there's this like kind of like retro diner in Tucson called Little Anthony's.
Uh-huh.
And that was my first Arizona Places video that kind of blew up. I was just outside of it. They had this cool pink car at the time. I don't know if they still have it out there. And then it's just this like really cool retro diner. That's really what kind of took off. And then there was businesses reaching out during that time during COVID. They're like, "Hey, would you like to come in and do a video?" And I'm like, "Oh," I was like, "Sure." I mean, because I never really considered myself a foodie. I've always been very much leaning in lifestyle and fashion, but doing some of the early food collabs during COVID really kind of changed the trajectory of my platform into more restaurant, lifestyle, food, things to do. And so it kind of opened up that realm as well for me.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So, when you are creating content now,
Mhm.
what is the hardest part about creating content? And what is something that you've learned like throughout your years of experience creating content that's helped you maybe make it not as hard?
I think the hardest part about creating content is I mean, I love being creative. So I think for me, I really love putting together stuff. But I think when you are a creator, and I think what I've personally experienced is comparison, right?
Mm.
Comparison, being kind of in this whole headspace with views. I think that could be very hard because you could put out the best video and then it flops. And you're like, oh my gosh, that was so good. I loved it. But it flops and it kind of stings a little bit, right? Because you want people to see your work. And so that's been, that could be hard. It can take a toll on people. Even, I have a lot of creative friends who kind of feel the same way. It's, the algorithm too, right?
Yeah.
Like it's something that you can't really necessarily control. And so you just have to continue to put your work out there. And I would say the thing that has helped me as a content creator, I would have to say is, not letting that get to your head and to keep going, right? Even though it can be hard to be kind of stuck on the views and the likes and all these things coming at you. I've just accepted that there's always going to be ebbs and flows. And I've looked at my 15 plus years online. I've had viral moments and I've had big moments. And then there's been, it's like, been a little bit steady, right? And so there's going to be those spikes and those ebbs and those flows. And, that's okay because, I know 100 people sounds like, man, I only had 100 views on this video, but like imagine if 100 people were right in front of you, right? That's huge, right? Imagine if 1,000 people were in front of you and 1,000 people viewed that video. And so I always kind of keep that in the back of my mind is like, yeah, maybe it wasn't a million viewed video, but man, it got 10,000 views. That's 10,000 people that watched. That's a lot of people. And I know I would be scared in person if 10,000 people were right in front of me. I'd be like, oh, whoa, I have to do a speech in front of all these people. So yeah, I would have to say that. And I think that's really helped me because I've had some awesome opportunities, even when I felt like, oh, maybe I'm in a flop era or maybe I'm just not doing as well. I've had awesome opportunities just because, people saw my video. It's not really about the video itself. It's about who's watching. And you never know who's watching. And there could be a cool opportunity from just that video that you're like, man, I only got 500 views, but it only took that one person to see that video to be like, "Oh, wow, we wanna work with you," or "We wanna collab with you," or whatnot.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the ebbs and flows. You said like I've just come to accept that there's going to be good times, there's going to be bad times. How did how do you deal with the bad times like now and versus maybe earlier on? Like what have you learned that helps you deal with those times that maybe aren't the best?
Yeah, back then, oh my gosh, I'd get so frustrated and crash out. 'Cause it's like, you're like, "Man, is this ever gonna take off?" Hey, I think you like I said, you just have to keep going. I think like, being in this space and accepting that, things change so fast in social media. What it was when I started has completely changed now, right? And it's going to continue to change. And we're in kind of an era where, it is super heavy on interest based content versus like back 4 or 5 years ago, it was about, like, your follower count. It was about, the likes and all those things. Even though those things still matter, you could start a new account tomorrow, post one video, and it can go viral, right? Like, it's kind of like, yes, the followers and all that matter, but not as much anymore because I feel like now it's such an even playing field to where anybody can post content and it can take off, right? Like I started I started my a second account recently back in December, just Arizona places, right? Because I still have my Arizona Places series on my main account, but I was like, I'm gonna start a second account just so like I can just have a place for my followers just to see all the food and lifestyle and Arizona-based videos. And even with that account, like I've posted a couple of just native videos just on that account that have gotten pretty good views. And it's like, that's a new account. So it's like now that we're more in interest-based media and what people's interests are, it's like it's an even playing field, and so I think for myself, like, it's that acceptance of, like, it's really going to be based off of, like, what's relevant right now, what are the hot topics going on, and what people's interests are. So, I think with the ebbs and the flows, like, that's just something that you kinda have to kinda come to terms with as a creator. Things are gonna continue to evolve, and you kinda have to evolve with it, or you sometimes get left behind because I had friends, I was like, you girls get on TikTok. I told them way back when, "Oh, no, it's like a vine, it's gonna die, da, 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 da." Still here,
Yeah.
and now they're trying to grow on TikTok, right? When they could have grown back in COVID. So it's just like you kind of have to hop on things when they're early and understand that there's going to be ebbs and flows and also protect your business, right? Because at the end of the day, we don't own these platforms. TikTok, Instagram, those can be taken away at any moment. We saw the crash out last year with TikTok. Like went away for a day or so and people were freaking out and they lost their businesses. And so I think it's also important for creators to realize that like yes, you have these platforms, but you can't put your eggs all in one basket. So for myself, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I have a podcast, I'm on YouTube, I have a Substack, I have a website.
Mhm.
Like stressing if TikTok disappeared tomorrow or an Instagram disappeared tomorrow. Like I still have so many ways and avenues for my audience to find me that that's kind of what has created longevity for me, versus just trying to chase a viral video.
Yeah.
You want to build that longevity.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Protect your business from everything that could potentially happen, looking into the future and saying, well, if this happened to TikTok, it very well could happen here. It could very well happen here. So let me, make my brand bigger than just a TikTok brand or just
Mhm.
an Instagram brand. That's
Absolutely.
awesome. So, and you mentioned it, followers, views, that's kind of something that like it's very interest based, right?
Mhm.
But I've also heard people say like, hey, it's just about, you got to get, once you get over this amount of people following you, then it's just kind of just takes off. Like
Mhm.
people are just, it's a constant thing.
Mhm.
So what was the hardest like mountain as far as followers for you to get? Was it getting over 100 followers? Was it getting over 1,000 followers? Was it 10,000? I mean, you're at hundreds of thousands now, but
Mhm.
what was the hardest mountain to like get up over? And then after that, it was just like, oh, it's just growing like crazy now.
Yeah. Say, probably the hardest milestone was probably 50K.
Okay.
I feel like that is a pretty big milestone for creators to hit.
Mhm.
I felt like after 50K, my account on Instagram and TikTok grew pretty fast. But I will have to say, like, even now, like I've kind of plateaued a little bit, right? Like, yes, there's people following me and, I'm still maybe having a little, like a tad bit of steady growth, but it's plateaued. It's not as expansive as it was probably 2 or 3 years ago. But again, that comes with the ebbs and flows. So right now I'm kind of at this stagnation, which feels similar to where I was back in like 2019, 2018 on Instagram. I little bit of growth in the very beginning and I stagnated around 15K for about a year and a half to 2 years, and my Instagram didn't pick back up until Reels in, 2021 when Instagram released Reels.
Mhm.
So I was stagnated for a while, and so I think that's also something that's not talked about too, is, like, there's going to be those, those ebbs and those flows and there's those peaks, right? Because I feel like it may seem like, "Oh my gosh, she's just growing," but, when I'm looking at the stats and I'm looking at the numbers and the analytics, it's like, okay, I've been kind of at this kind of stage for a little bit, I'm not expansively growing like I was, but that kind of comes with the territory. And I think that's something that also you have to think about as a creator is like, how can I continue to evolve and reinvent myself, right? Because people get bored, right? And also, when you look at the landscape, what was probably just a handful of creators back during COVID. I know myself and a handful of us kind of started our Arizona kind of content around the same time. Now there's like quadruple the amount of creators doing the same things we're doing. So also like the market's saturated, right? Attention is going to so many different people now. So it's not like it once was. And so it's almost like how do you break through that? And I think that's something that I ask myself constantly. I'm like, okay, like, well, how can I evolve and, break through that?
Would you say that's the hardest part of being a content creator is having to evolve continually?
Yeah, yeah, to stay relevant. Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, you have to, especially if you're doing this full time and this is like your full-time gig, it's like it's based off of relevancy, right? Like if I stopped posting for 4 months, how does that affect my business? That's going to affect brand deals. That's going to affect, views. That's going to affect opportunities. So it's kind of one of those things that if you're on this hamster wheel, especially with short form video, um, it's kinda hard to take, like, a full-on break because you have to consistently continue to pump out the content and pump out the videos.
So how do you like, because this sounds just from what you're describing, it's very taxing, can be,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Mentally, physically, emotionally, how do you take care of all those aspects of your life? Like, how do you make sure, like, I'm not crashing out, I'm not getting burnt out, I'm not, what do you do to help yourself?
Yeah, I feel like it can be mentally taxing, but I love content creation. But I think you also have to with anything protect your peace, protect your energy. And I think for myself, I try to just like unplug. And that can be hard. It really can be. But even if it's like making sure my phone is locked, I have a brick where I'm like breaking my phone
Oh,
now.
okay.
So I'm not scrolling constantly and just kind of like have that time off of social media. I think is so important. I also think as a creator, especially if you want to do this full time, you got to create more than you consume. I think that's the biggest thing I see with a lot of creators is they're constantly scrolling, they're constantly looking at what other people are doing, and they're not actually taking action on their own lives and their own content. And so I think that's something that you have to kind of really just kind of get used to is like, okay, like I really need to like unplug so I actually have the creative bandwidth to create something that's meaningful to myself. So I do that. I try not to scroll as much, or if I do scroll, I try not to like I try to make it something like unrelated to like
Mm.
food content or something like that. So it would just be that. And then also just like kind of getting outside, getting out in nature. I feel like I think like with most people, this post pandemic era, I think now a lot of us are realizing, okay, we need community, we need to go outside, we need other hobbies. So I've been really, really trying to be mindful with that is picking up new hobbies, reading more, doing other stuff that doesn't involve my I think that's so important because, I mean, there was a time where I was just glued on 24/7 with the phone. And so I think that really helps protect your peace a little bit as well.
I love that advice.
Yeah.
All right, I have a few more questions for you. So, um, you've mentioned a lot of things that you've learned throughout this process of becoming a content creator. And like you mentioned at the beginning, this is something that a lot of people now are like, that's what I'm going to do. There's so many videos that where I just see, what are you going to be when you grow up? I'm going to be a content creator. I'm going to be I forget the name of it right now.
So
An influencer,
influencer,
right?
yeah.
That's not the term that people use as much anymore, right? Is now it's like I'm a content creator. I'm
Yeah.
not an influencer. I'm a content creator, right?
Yeah.
And so, what would you tell people that are just now starting getting into it? Maybe they just graduated high school. Maybe they're in high school. Maybe they're in college and they're like, college isn't for me. I'm going to do this. What
Yeah.
would you tell them? Hey, you need to be aware of this and this and this. Like, I wasn't aware of these things,
Mhm.
or maybe you see something now, like being 7, 8 years into this,
Mhm.
like that you would tell someone like, hey, just be cautious of these things because if you want to be successful, you're going to have to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good question. And I see that too. I actually shockingly, well, not shockingly, but I spoke at an elementary school recently because that's their number one, Gen Alpha now. The kids that are like in elementary school, that number one career path, content creator. They want to be streamers.
Yeah.
They see Mr. Beast. Like those are the people that they are looking up to. And then I also recently spoke at GCU, which they now have a social media major.
Wow.
You can major in social media. So now these kids are going to school to do kind of what we're doing
That's
podcasting,
crazy.
content creation. They're learning this. This is an actual skill that they're learning to getting degrees in. And so it just like it's so interesting now. Like that wasn't a thing 10 years ago, like 15 years ago when I was in college. So it's really cool to see that. I would say a few things. This is a long game. I think of now that, we're in this new era of content creation and social media it is a long game. It's kind of leaning towards entertainment now. Entertainment and kind of social media are merging. We're seeing that with, even those two YouTubers, the one that created, the director that created Obsession and the other one that created Backrooms. Those are two big movies in the box office right now created by YouTubers. So like we're seeing like a merging of Hollywood with social media with content creation and I really think it's a long game in a sense of like, yes, you can go viral and get a viral video, but it's kind of after what are you doing after you go viral, right? Anybody can get a viral video, but how are you building a career? And a career takes time. It takes it takes skill, right? And it takes effort and it may not be overnight.
Mm.
Yes, there's going to be those one or two people that are going to blow up and their lives change. But you even look at some of the biggest creators like Mr. Beast, Kai Cenat, like even like some of the biggest people, they've been doing it for a long time. This wasn't like a 1 year thing and then they were famous. Mr. Beast's story is, wild. He was doing it since he was like 11, and you were only seeing this recent chunk of success from him. So it's like it's a long game. And I think if you want to do it and you want to get into it, find something that you actually enjoy and you like talking about, whether that is fitness, makeup, beauty, food, whatever that is. Because if you're just trying to chase whatever is going to get you to go viral, you're gonna, 1, burn out because you're gonna hate it because you're gonna be like, "Well, it's not working for me, and I also hate this topic." And 2, it's like you might get in it and you might have a little bit of success, but again, you're gonna hate it, You're not gonna be happy, and then you're gonna try to wanna pivot your niche. Now you're boxed in, now you're trying to get out of this, and you wanna talk about other things. And so I think if you come into a place of, like, finding something that you really truly enjoy talking about, it's going to be easy for you to one, create content and be consistent, and two, like, you'll enjoy it if it becomes a job for you. Um, Also, like, stay in school. Like, I know people want to quit their job and be content creators. Hey, if it takes off, go for it.
Mm.
But I mean, I've been even seeing, even people I know in my circle, like, who maybe did content creation full time for a while and they're having to go back and get a job because they don't have that business mindset, that because you still need those entrepreneurial skills to really scale this, right? Like, I wouldn't be able to sustain this if I wasn't trying to, like, figure out, okay, how do I scale this? How do I, continue to get opportunities? How do I position myself? And a lot of it is positioning as well when it comes to being a creator and how you get opportunities and how you pitch yourself. You have to pitch yourself to brands. There's so much loaded in. It's a hustle, but it's very doable and very possible. So I would say that is, you need to know how to position yourself. You need to have the entrepreneurial skills if you want to make money, because there's a lot of people that have millions of followers, but they're not making much off of social media. So you have to really come in with a strategic game plan if you want this to be a career and you want to make money off of it. And then also have multiple streams of income, right? Because even with my brand deals, it's like 1 month, it's great. I'm working with 6, 7 brands. Oh, 6, 7. I don't know. That's like so. I'm
Yeah.
like, what the heck? I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, sometimes I'm working with so many different brands, and then the next month it's a little slow, right? And so what are you doing to fill in those gaps? And I think, as a creator, you need to have multiple streams of income, whether that is, affiliate links, you're doing some side gigs, you have other things going for yourself, a course, an ebook, you have other streams, to where you're not putting your eggs in one basket and just relying on brand deals.
I love that. Great advice.
Yeah.
Great advice. You graduated from U of A?
Mhm.
Okay. So U of A calls you and they say, hey, U of A alum, we're opening a social media degree and we need someone to teach. Would you teach? I didn't know that was a degree actually. And so,
I think they just did it at ASU too. So I think ASU has it too
so
now.
I mean, I don't know what the credentials are for those professors that are teaching those, but I mean, would you, if they asked you to teach one class, would you consider it?
I would probably consider it. Yeah. I would hope it'd be like a virtual so
Yeah.
I don't have to move back to Tucson. I love Tucson. It's my hometown, but I'm like, I like it out here.
Right. If ASU called and they're like, hey, one in person class a week.
I you know, yeah, I would still say yes. ASU's awesome. I've actually done some stuff with them already. It was last year I actually spoke at their summer camp for
Oh, cool.
high school kids transitioning into college, and it was about social media because
That's
they
awesome.
also were all about, like, how can I be an influencer? So I've actually done some stuff with ASU. So I mean, if they
All
called
right.
me, I mean, I would say yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. If you're listening, ASU, and you need a teacher right here, we got a
Yeah.
Professor Beasley right here.
Uh-huh.
All right. Last question for you.
Mhm.
The title of the podcast is Unstuck,
Mhm.
right? So many people, we get stuck. Everyone does, whether it's emotionally, physically, mentally, financially. You can get stuck in all kinds of different aspects of your life. And it happens more more than once in our lives where we're stuck maybe in the same place or in a different place.
Mhm.
What would you tell someone that feels stuck, and how what would be the advice you'd give them to help them begin the process of becoming unstuck?
That's so good. I would have to say go within. I think that's something that I've been working on even with myself is, sometimes we're so distracted with just all the noise, whether that is social media or, friends, family, work, or job, and then we're not really focused on ourselves. And so I think it's so important for us to go within ourselves and really do some soul searching, whether that's through meditation, any type of mindfulness, prayer, whatever it is, and sit with yourself. I think that we're in a society that's so overstimulated and so highly distracted with everything that we've kind of lost ourselves. I think a lot of people are in the same position because we're so distracted. And sometimes when we silence all of that and we kind of come back to ourselves to be like, oh wow, I actually like this. You're hearing your own voice and your own thoughts because we're being thrown so much of other people's opinions and thoughts, especially online. And so I've been trying to be better with that with myself. And I think that is like one of the first steps to get unstuck. Because when you're able to hear your own thoughts and you're able to go within, you'll be able to kind of really find out who you truly are. Yeah.
I love that. And
Yeah.
look inside and fix yourself on the inside
Mhm.
first. Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank
I
you for
really
having me.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Real quick before I let you go, where can the listeners find you if they don't already follow you? How can they follow you? How can they see what you're posting? All that. How can we find you?
Yes. So you guys can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Substack at Aiesha Beasley. And then I also have a podcast called At Thriving Loudly, which you can find on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and your kind of streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple. And then, yeah, you can also find me at AieshaBeasley.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you again so much. And this episode resonated with any of you guys, if there was something Aisha said that resonated with you, please share it. Share it with someone that feels stuck that can help them get unstuck. Or if there's someone out there that wants to be a content creator and that's something they're aspiring to be, this would be a great thing for them to listen to. So thank you, Aisha. I'm Brett and Hunt. This was Unstuck. And remember that progress begins with one step. And we'll see you next time.